Thank you, Mr. Chair. Secretary Lew, congratulations on this nomination. It's very important. I want to read some quotes that I found interesting, reactions from Israeli officials and others to the news of your nomination. The current Foreign Minister Kaine in early September tweeted out, "Welcome Ambassador-designee Jacob Lew, as you have been nominated U.S. Ambassador to Israel, a country you know so well. We look forward to working with you in the spirit of our close cooperation and alliance." In a follow-up interview, he said about you, "He is a true friend of Israel, and we expect to work with him in the spirit of our alliance that's based on shared values." Many of us know former Ambassador Michael Oren, the Israeli ambassador to the United States. When you were being rumored as a potential nominee, he said, "Jack Lew is reportedly a lead candidate to be U.S. Ambassador to Israel. He's a true statesman and a passionate Jew. As Israel's ambassador to the U.S., I greatly valued his friendship and his outstanding defense of the U.S.-Israel alliance, a mention in every sense of the word." Human rights activist Natan Sharansky in 2015 said this, "Lew worked days and nights taking families of prisoners of Zion through all the corridors of power to make sure the Jews would be released. Many Soviet refuseniks owe their lives to him and others for the successful efforts to release them." Israeli official Yuval Steinitz also in 2015 recalled that without Lew's help, Israel would never have been accepted into the OECD. These are comments that are powerful. There is a need for speed in acting on this nomination. I encourage my colleagues to do all we can to get it to the floor quickly so that we can have a confirmed ambassador to Israel at this most important moment. The news this morning is also that the Biden administration is sending to us a supplemental package that has aid for Ukraine, aid for Israel, border aid, and also disaster assistance for states hit by weather emergencies. I would hope that the Senate could show in a bipartisan manner that we would support this. I think that would send a powerful message to Israel as well. I want to ask about Iran. Look, the most controversial issue on this committee, I've been on the committee the whole time I've been here, since I came in 2013, was the JCPOA. There are people in this body, Mr. Lew, who they're not going to let you out of the penalty box over that. There are some who were opposed, who can separate their feeling about the JCPOA from whether you would be a good ambassador. But there were some, you're not going to get out of the penalty box with them. But I do notice something that you just mentioned. I think 4 of the members of this committee have been sanctioned by Iran. Not all of us have been, but you've been sanctioned by Iran. Tell the committee why Iran sanctioned you.
Well, Senator, at the end of the JCPOA negotiation, I think it was Iran's hope that they would get exactly what has been described here, that they would be welcomed into the world of nations, and they were profoundly disappointed when that didn't happen. And they did not think that I kept the bargain. One thing I will say is a deal is a deal. We made a deal with Iran. If you want sanctions to work to get sovereign powers to change their policy, which Iran did in rolling back its nuclear program, you have to keep your side of the bargain. I didn't think we had to do any more than that.
Right, and so the sanctions that were lifted in that deal were sanctions pertaining to Iran's nuclear program,
Correct.
But we never agreed to lift any other sanction about human rights problems, development of missile systems, violation of other UN resolutions. We lifted none of those sanctions, and you went around the world reminding banks and financial institutions that those sanctions were still in place, and if they acted contrary to them, there were negative consequences that they would receive.
And we did tell banks that if it's a nuclear sanction, those have been lifted, because that's what the deal was.
Well, I think you should be proud of being sanctioned by Iran. And I heard a comment earlier that said, holding hands with them under the table. If that was the case, you wouldn't be on the list of those who are sanctioned by the nation of Iran. I was very pleased to see that Ambassador Satterfield will serve as the special envoy to lead U.S. diplomacy to address the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. I associate myself with comments made by Senator Menendez. Hamas started this horrible war against civilians, but all Palestinians are not Hamas, all Gazans are not Hamas, and a broader humanitarian challenge in Gaza will serve not Israel's interest, be detrimental to Palestinians, will not serve the regional interest. We need to do all we can to encourage our ally Israel to take the fight to the perpetrator and not to those who weren't the perpetrators. We have painful lessons we've learned about that in the United States. We took the fight to the perpetrator after 9/11, but as we broadened it into a global war, including a war against Iraq, we lost credibility. We lost support nationally. We unleashed a set of consequences that probably should not have been unleashed. And so we have our own painful experience of being attacked and then allowing the response to go beyond those who perpetrated the attack and suffering as a result. And I'm hoping that you'll work closely together with Envoy Satterfield on this important humanitarian mission.
Well, Senator, I have to say that I don't think I could have found the words to say as eloquently what the President has said on multiple occasions over the last week. Israel not just has a right, but a responsibility to defend itself. And what makes our relationship with Israel so special is that we share a common belief in democracy and in the rule of law, and that includes the law of war. I think that is what Israel believes. And this is not the time for us to be lecturing Israel on what they have to do to establish the security that they have a responsibility to provide. And I think they know they have to do it in a way that is consistent with minimizing the impact on innocent civilians. As we learned in Fallujah and in Mosul and Ramadi, it is very hard for there not to be collateral damage. So I don't think the standard can be that gets to zero. And I don't think that's what the President said. The President said they have to defend themselves.
Senator Romney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, along with